Perfect. Great. Well, good morning, everyone. It's Friday, September 15th, 2023. This is a meeting of the Weston Board of Education Financial Facilities and Operations Committee meeting. We have a quorum of members. The first item on the agenda is an update of facilities and ground maintenance. Mike?
Hi, good morning, everybody. Good to see everybody.
Good to see you.
Okay, so this was one of the busiest summers I've been associated with since I've been here, other than the changeover of the middle school H-wing to STEM. We had a lot of projects done internally through operations, whether it was our team or contractors, capital. We received a lot of compliments to the start of this year with how the buildings look. One comment that I heard, which was really, really nice to hear, was the middle school has never looked so good. So definitely a step in the right direction this summer. Guys definitely to their butt to get all the work done, and it came from everybody: grounds, maintenance, custodial, everything really got pulled together. So I'll get started with just a little touch base of what we did. Elementary school, we'll start with North House. We did some more lighting upgrades in classrooms and ceiling tiles. So that makes about, I think it's 16 spaces have been upgraded, and will continue next summer. The maker space off of the library, which they looking to do a little bit different from computer lab to a maker space. We removed the carpet and added VCT tile. We put in 2 bottle fillers in the East House and the North House. So now every house has at least one bottle filler in it. A lot of painting throughout the building. Touch up or just complete paint over. North House, we waterproofed the foundation of the basement, an elevator vault room. We've had water intrusion for quite a while now. So that was dug out. They put a rubber seal on it, many coats. So that's been taken care of and completed. Also, the 2 drains that came off of the North House roof were tied into the storm, which was actually one of the problems that was dropping the water onto the elevator vault room that nobody knew that we had. North House, we also repaired a collapsed sewer drain, which is right outside the North House towards the playground, heading towards the septic tank. We fixed the front door, added a center mullion, stiffened it, so it's much more secure, much more stable. Electronics are working. We're going to do the same thing with a couple other doors as we get through. We just wanted to see how this was going to play out and see how the retro build was going to go to the existing doors, and it actually is. It's a great product. All right, intermediate school, we had to drain the building of all the heating and all the cooling water. We had many leaks from install 2006 that we tried to band-aid through for years. And we finally had the opportunity in August as summer school, ESY, all the camps exited. So all valves were replaced that needed to be replaced, fittings, piping, anything that was an issue was repaired, replaced. Now, that's not to say we're not going to have something else come up, but at least the handful of leaks that we had at the time were completely repaired. Last quarter of school, we replaced all VCT tile in the 3 music rooms. We added sound dampening carpet tiles in rooms 119, 120, 121 to help with the reverberation of the sound bouncing off of the walls. And then we'll go to step 2 and see what we can put on the walls to add for sound dampening. And again, painting was all throughout all the classrooms and hallways. Middle school, we added storm drain in the rear parking lot where the parent drop-off is. If you've dropped your kid off there, or if you've driven him back when we've had heavy rain or snow, you always knew you had to drive through a little bit of a, we'll call it a lake. So we tied that into storm, much bigger drain, so that'll alleviate that problem of water and, unfortunately, in the wintertime, ice. So that is a great project that we got taken care of. We added 3 bottle fillers to that building, 1 in A wing, 1 in B wing, 1 in G wing. Lockers were replaced in A wing and F wing, which really helped brighten up the space with a fresh coat of paint. Main boiler in the boiler room had to be taken apart and needed to be resealed, water side and combustion side. Just with the shifting and moving, it just had a couple of leaks that we just couldn't take care of in house. It was just too big of a project. Capital from a couple of years back is complete. All the pumps for the heating and cooling water completely installed, returned, installed, ready to go, moving water around. So we're getting ready for heating season, which we know we go from cooling right to heating. We, old gym, we replaced both baskets on the bleacher side with retractable backboards. So it can get out of the way of the bleachers, no interference from view or a bump in your head. And also in that building, painting throughout the entire building was done. High school gym floors were all refinished this year. The two of them. The product we use is H2O. It's a Trophy H2O system. It's a two-part epoxy. That's just a busy school, so we do it at least every year. Painting throughout the building again. Hallways, classrooms. We had some smart boards put in, some interactive boards put in, so a lot of touch-up had to be done for that to take place. Cast iron drainage for C and D wing that was in the rear boiler room, which is the original boiler room to the building, all was replaced. It was starting to show signs of weakening. We repaved the main parking lot in the front of the school. Also in the school, the additional junior lot overflow, we had to add a storm drain in there. We're getting a lot of runoff coming from the entrance to the middle school. A lot of dirt, gravel process would just run into the driveway. That was added. We have the weight room, dance studio, C5 project still in progress. All demo has been completed in the weight room and in C5. It's just supply chain. We're waiting for equipment to come in. It originally was supposed to be about 8 to 10 week. It's turning out to be about a 12 to 14, and hopefully that deadline doesn't move either. I could say that the install for the dance studio, that's complete. Probably soon to be turned on. Will be commissioned by Modern Mechanical, the company who put it in, probably within a week or two, I would say. We did D&E wings. We did all the LED retrofit, upgrading all the classrooms up on hallways, and one music room in B wing. Campus wide, we replaced a bunch of the playground equipment. Still have a couple things that still on our plate that we're having issues getting the material in. Some things just continue to break down. But those repairs were done. We did about 40 or 50 or so. We had all the catch basins vacked out throughout campus and all the playgrounds and areas like that, just to help with water flow to get stormwater off. And with all the rain that we had, it was definitely a necessity, and it definitely helped us out, keeping water out of our buildings and where we don't want it. Composting in the high school should kick off, I would say, in another week to 2 weeks. So certainly by the end of September. Mike Aikenhead is spearheading this. He needed a little bit of time with the product to make his videos, to with his green team, to just show how the initiative is going to work in the cafeterias. The initial part with the trash and regular recycle is going off really well. We purchased 3 base stations for trash, recycle, and compost. Right now we have the recycle and trash out. We will add the compost when he's ready to go. We've ordered all the additional cans for the elementary school, intermediate school, and middle school. Again, this is an initiative that's going, countrywide. So they are making them at Rubbermaid as the orders come in. I was told we will have them in early October, and then Mike is going to help us out with the getting that program moved along through all the other schools. That way we can be composting in all 4. I believe.
I'm sorry, if I can just add something really quickly about that, just to kind of keep everyone in the loop. And everyone's doing a great job with the sustainability efforts. I did meet the other day with the sustainability consultants that are working with the town. And I said to them that the 2 things that we are working with is, the first one has to do with composting and the recycling and all that, and that it would be a year-long initiative, as Mike said, to roll it out appropriately and planful. And frankly, I would rather go a little bit slower if it empowers the students to run the program. And that's the key. I don't need, they want to run the program. So if it means there might be a bit of delay, there's going to be a delay in how we're rolling it out, which is good. And then along the same lines of the importance of sustainability as we move forward with any kind of a town, municipal and school building projects, and to keep that theme, but just to add. And they have done a great job. I featured it on the Instagram. If anybody saw it, Miss Canetta throwing out her trash. So kudos to them. Sorry, go ahead.
And
Yeah, it's run really well at the high school. I mean, I know last year there was a lot of items left on the tables as the kids were leaving, going back to class. And this year with the separation of the containers, I've heard from Jeff and Kevin that the kids have stepped up, through the guidance, and everything's getting put where it needs to be put. So far, so good.
Yeah, they even have a thing where you can dump extra liquid. Like, I want to throw out the bottle, I'm going to dump it. They're doing a really great job. And so kudos to the custodians, because they built something to push the stuff down in, and they're all on top of it. So it's really great.
Right, can I ask a quick question about the weight room? We received a donation of a lot of weight equipment, weightlifting equipment. Is that all in there now? And
I don't know all the details with the donations and exactly what it was, but what we received was definitely far limited to what we thought we were going to receive, I guess we'll say. We received some miscellaneous items, some different attachments here and there. I think we received a couple of plates for different bench machines and bars. But as for the equipment, that never transpired for whatever reason. I know that there were a couple exercise bikes that had gotten that were brought over to the middle school. But as for large term equipment, there wasn't really much to the high school weight room.
That's right. I remember them talking about that. They're moving a couple of things over there, which is great.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Just by the way, as we're talking about facilities and stuff, I just want to give a huge thank you to to Public Works. They really helped us out quite a bit this year. The project that Mike mentioned at the high school with that catch basin, that was installed by the Public Works. We also had a drain at Hurlbut that needed to be lowered, and it was lowered. So I just want to give a huge thank you to them. They've been tremendous for this summer.
Thanks for that, Phil. And just one more thing, Mike, just out of curiosity, the ability to find all these various suppliers and firms to do all this work.
It's trying. It's really trying, Steve. I mean, getting calls back is difficult. So it was a fight to get these projects going all through the year. Everything came down to the last minute. So, I mean, everyone's going through the same thing. They don't have the qualified mechanics, so they're not going to man the jobs. If they don't have it, they'll just postpone. So it's been trying. We're still even with some of our capital items that are still ongoing. It's just trying to get return calls and trying to get the work started it's tough. Supply chain. I mean, it's hard to say. I don't know if they're using it as a crutch or if it's an actual thing. I know it's a bit of a thing still, but I mean, the stuff that we do in-house, it's getting back to normal. But it seems like some of our capital items are using the supply chain as a delay. I can't speak for when they get delivered, the large equipment, but it's definitely, it's a process, and we have to be patient. And at the same time, we need to put the pressure on them as well. But yeah, it's a trying time right now to try to get projects done in a timely fashion, especially when our summers are literally 8 to 9 weeks long.
Great, thank you. We'll keep that in mind. Melissa, Peter, any questions?
Yeah, I just had a question on the general timetable for some of the security measures that were approved at the end of the year. I know you can't go into specifics, but maybe if you could speak generally about the timetable for that.
Yeah, some of it's been completed, 100%. We still have some other items that, again, it's the companies and coming up with ideas of what we can use to move forward. So calls have been made. Companies that we've had multiple companies out. Like I said, I'm not going to get into specifics like you had mentioned, but we've had multiple companies out going back and forth with pricing, final measurements. So we walked another company through, I believe it was 2 weeks ago, Monday, for final measuring. So we'll have a couple of different companies to go from. So it's still in process, and definitely, certainly not forgotten.
Yeah, and in terms of the major initiative that we had for K5, that has been completed.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
No, that's a great report. I like, we'll keep an eye on the sustainability initiatives and retrofits. We'll build on Melissa's idea to create a budget line item in the next round focused on sustainability. So having data points and having success and things like that sort of help get that done, right? We'll just keep an eye on it. I think it's a good start to the year. Thank you.
Yeah, it's great, Mike. Sounds like you need a vacation.
It's coming.
Okay. If there aren't any other questions, let's move on to item 2, capital projects update.
All right. So Andrew compiled a PDF for us here that we can look at. I could just go through. I'll just go through line by line. I guess I'll go through the first year, and then you guys could ask your questions if you have them. The first one was the replacement of the old Jim air handler units. So that was that was changed to a rebuild, replace as needed. And that was going to be, motors, bearings, belts, wheels, whatever it took to get these units back to another 10 to 15 years of useful life. And also getting all 4 units onto energy management. That's complete. Intermediate school windowsill repairs, that is complete. That was last summer. The elementary school North House air handler unit, right now it's limping along. The money that was put aside wasn't close in number. And so that works hand in hand with the capital project that I had for 23 to do the entire North House and not just focus on the North House gym. So we'll combine those together and see how we can improve the air quality in the North House. But that's just, it's on hold till probably late this year. Like I said, we have the unit running, we have the AC running. So the unit it's working, it's well maintained, fresh air, cooling, heating, but we just wanted to incorporate that with the large scale North House analysis. High school cut inoperable window nurse's office. That is one of the companies that have been tough to deal with timing. I actually finally made contact yesterday after weeks of trying. I was told the window will be delivered to their shop in 2 weeks, in which they will take, as soon as that comes in, the first Saturday that's available to them and to us, they will install it. The hole's already been cut. It's got a temporary window in there, completely weatherproof. So it's a great window. It's just not operable. So the operable window with, let's just say, with some sort of buffer by the end of October will be installed. Grounds truck that was delivered last year, and VCT in the south house of the elementary school for the cafeteria, that was done as well. Any questions on FY22? Okay. 23, we have C5 air handler. That's all been demoed. First part of the summer. That was done in the beginning of July. Waiting for equipment. That was one of those items I told you that was supposed to be an 8 to 10 week and is now teetering that 14-week lead time. I was told that equipment will be in on middle of October at this point. District-wide security initiatives, that project is installed and complete, awaiting testing. It's going to be all configured with IT, and then we're going to run a test on it. ductwork was completed. That was the majority of that ductwork was completed by the end of the previous school year. Intermediate school, double extension door to gym. The single door was completed. That was also with the same company who was doing the window for the nurse's office. Took a little longer than we had liked. Some things went a little hokey, but end product, end time, it functions really well and looks nice and it's complete. Tennis court repairs are complete. What do you have? Middle school, replace, rebuild all the 16 pumps and cooling pumps. We received the last 2 about a week ago and they're installed. We're already moving hot water around. Let me speak that. We're moving water around just to get the air out, because once you start knocking these pumps off, you get a lot of air in the system. So those are in and moving water as we speak. WIS and high school fire panel replacement. When we changed, I'm sure I mentioned you guys last year, when we changed our monitoring companies, we were given bad information from the original company that monitors. The new company assured us 10 to 15 years of life, so we have no reason to replace these. But what we are doing is looking for anything that we can do to make our lives easier here for the system, any kind of upgrades, any kind of replacements that need to be done. So that's still in process. We had the original inspection was done the last month of school, the last month of summer. And we have a couple other things in mind as we get the pricing in, probably for next finance and facilities. We should have more information on how we're going to move forward with that. High school HVAC for the weight room, dance studio, weight room, the unit ventilators towards the tail end of the year actually ruptured. So I was able to get Modern Mechanical, this company doing the mechanical side of it, get them out here to get the old units demoed, valved off, and capped. So that side of it's complete. That is supposed to be delivered. The 2 unit ventilators are supposed to be here at the end of October. So we're hoping maybe Thanksgiving break. It's the weight room, so they can get in there really at any time. We can shut that down for PE. We can move PE around a day or 2. The dance studio is 100% complete. Just needs to be commissioned by Modern Mechanical, the company that put it in. That way our warranty stands. The relining of the chimney for the north house and core, we've made calls the last month or so. We haven't received anything back, so we're just going to continue to be vigilant and keep calling around and see what we can get out here to do a quick inspection and see what needs to be done. The consulting work that we have for the middle school, for bathroom reconfiguration, for mirroring C and D wing to E wing, and the north house HVAC, started to make phone calls already. I'm hoping by the tail end of this year into December, we'll begin all of that consultant work. Middle school 7th and 8th grade student lockers have been completed. They're missing a couple small pieces, so we're holding back the final payment, but it's nothing that's going to make it unsafe. It's just a couple of trim pieces. The middle school is a lot of structural steel in the way, so they weren't able to use the traditional end caps. They had to actually have a couple custom made. So that's what we're waiting on. The repointing brick in the north house we found that the problem with the water intrusion wasn't the repointing, rather it was the foundation to the basement. The elevator side of the elementary school north house has a basement which encompasses that entire side of the building. It's all been weatherproof. It was all dug out by excavator, dug out, and it was rubberized. So that water intrusion is done. And we've had quite a bit of rain, and it's been watertight. All right, that's FY23. Any questions with any of those?
Nope.
Okay. 24, we have the track replacement that we're still in the middle of awarding. We're waiting for one company to come back with a couple more. Well, I take back one other item. We have $600,000 slated for the project. And that would cover the entire track replacement and refinishing. But there's a couple of items that were requested by coaching and Mark Berkowitz that if we're going to do this kind of work, that we may as well complete the track to make it a more usable track for state competition, because at this point we cannot host state competition. And that's just adding a second sand pit for the long jump, and it's relocating the pole vault. So we're looking somewhere in the ballpark of maybe $70,000 to $100,000 of additional funding that we'll get into once we get our final numbers, which we were hoping to have by the end of this week, possibly early next week. Auditorium light and sound upgrade, that was also pushed to 24. Paving of the main parking lot, that has been completed, relined, marked with all the numbers. We have the lowboy mason dump truck and plow for grounds on order. So timing is everything with that. So we'll see when we receive that. Hopefully we'll have it for the first snowfall. South House bathroom renovation, that's also pushed to June. I try to piggyback off of what the senior center did, and the pricing that came back for one of the scope of work was just astronomical. I didn't like it. So we'll just go about this ourselves and bring separate contractors in. So that'll go the beginning of July if we can, late June as the kids exit the building. And that's it for 24. Any questions there?
Can I ask a question about the refurbishment of the tennis courts? What's the life of that?
Well, being that it's wetlands and it's constantly moving every season, there really is there's no estimate on it. I haven't been up there in a few months. I should probably get over there and just have a look and see how the repairs are holding. But I would imagine we have some movement already. We've already been through a winter, so.
Okay.
Yeah, and just Mike, in light of, all the work that's been done, what have you uncovered in that process that, isn't on the list or that should be added to the list going forward that we're not already aware of? Anything that we should be starting to think about planning for the future?
Just long-term HVAC repairs is really a main focus. That way we can, keep moving forward. Nothing really got uncovered with everything that we did. There was really no surprises. The only surprise that I had with all the projects was the North House, that they built a concrete vault for the elevator room for the machine room, and that's why we're taking in so much water. It just separated. It never was picked up that it was a separate room as opposed to the original pour with the building when they did the addition after the fire. But other surprises, I would say, I don't think we've received any surprises. I think we pretty much know what we have ahead of us.
Okay, thanks.
I think the only thing that I would add to that is we're finding that we're getting more leaks, especially at the West. So we may have to do some additional investigation into remediating the roof leaks at the West.
Okay. Thanks, Mike.
No problem.
Moving on to item number 3, it's fiscal year 23 year-end financial report. Phil?
Hello, everyone. All right, so when we last spoke, we were trending to have a surplus. That surplus amount has pretty much increased. So for the year ended June 30th, we've spent approximately 98% of our budget, and we do have, including open encumbrances, and these are just encumbrances that we're waiting for invoices, or in terms of for the spread department, we're waiting for backups from supporting documentation from families, and maybe the signing of 1 or 2 contracts. So if we focus more on the surplus, right? So there's a spreadsheet that outlines pretty much all of the unanticipated items that we had for this year. We spoke about the majority of these during the course of the year. Just reminders, we had salary savings. We had some savings for health insurance. We're having better than expected sped tuition and settlement savings, and that's thankful to Tracy and her management of that department. We're seeing some savings there. We had to move, students had to be moved around. We had various change in settlement agreements and and the like. We had savings in insurance. This is for our lap insurance. We spoke last year that we reduced the bus fleet by one bus, so we're now operating with 21. We had 22 prior to that. We had credits. We had the lease that was prepaid, the security lease that was prepaid in 22. We had an increase in pre-K and non-resident tuition. We had better than expected reimbursement for excess costs, and that was primarily driven by an increase in the reimbursement rate by the state. And the good thing is that we have 3 virtual net metering, or 3 solar farms, so to speak, and they because combined with a slight increase in the output, and also an increase in the reimbursement rate or the credit rates from Eversource, we had a significant increase in credits. So we had about almost $200,000 worth of credits that we received from that plan. Now, in addition to the savings that we have there, those credits are going to carry forward into fiscal 23. So I'm sorry, fiscal 24. So in fiscal 24, we will have some of that credits that's still lingering from this year, which is good news because for fiscal 2020, for calendar year 23, we're pretty much maxed out on the reimbursement credits for all 3 plans. Medicaid reimbursement is a slight increase there for about $8,000, and then we had the various offsets against the surplus. We shifted the payment from the non-lapsing account for the early retirement incentive plan that was set to be paid from our non-lapsing account. So we're paying for that from this year operating budget. We had an increase in transportation costs, primarily driven by athletics. We did, to mitigate the budget for fiscal 24, we did pre-purchase the K2 reading programs, the books and everything else there. We did agree, we spoke about buying uniforms and a wrestling mat for athletics. And there was just various other items that we pretty much used to offset that. You know, we did initiative for the EV charging station and the LED upgrade, the payment analysis, and some other items there. So all in all, what we're looking at a surplus of approximately $1.1 million. And as I mentioned, you know, this is primarily driven by all items that were unanticipated. If we take a step back and we look at salaries, right? So approximately $500,000 of salary savings were really driven by positions that were not filled, where they're either vacated during the course of the year, or we just had issues filling those positions. And then we had to cover that by internal coverage, by third-party coverage, and by long-term sub. So any questions on this?
Phil, the only question I have going forward, you know, these were all unanticipated, clearly, but now we've seen it happen this year. How much of this do you think will carry forward for future years in terms of budgeting? Especially, I know the utilities is going to be tough to gauge, but hopefully we're hearing improvements on hiring and what can we expect to be anticipated that we can budget for and account for versus how much of, you know, what can we learn from this would be my question.
So that's a very good question, Melissa. So during the course of as we were developing the budget for fiscal 24, we were monitoring all these items, right, and that we have, and we sort of kind of made some adjustments in our fiscal 24 budget. I think just by how things were trending, I think we reduced the budget by approximately $1 million, just based on how we were trending November through the final approval of the budget. So we did take into account some of these, what we saw as in terms of trends. You know, I think from the virtual net metering, we're back to what our contracted rate was from Eversource. So beginning in January, I think the rate went up to 26 cents, or the credit went up to 26 cents per kilowatt hour. we're back down to 17 cents. So that should stabilize somewhat. So we did make some adjustments to all the items for fiscal for 24 as best as we could. There's always going to be those unanticipated expenditures, of course, but forward looking, we didn't make those adjustments there.
Okay, great. Thanks, Phil.
So that's on the operating budget side. So I think it's important that we tie in our district-wide expenditures. So we had expenditures from our operating budget for approximately, let's say, $55 million. We did have expenditures as well from grant funding for approximately let's call it 1.3 million. So half of that came from COVID relief funds that we have. So as of the end of fiscal 23, we have exhausted all of our COVID funds. And then we're left with our recurring grants. So we have our Title grants, and then we have, so Title grants are Title I, a small money Title II, and Title IV, our IDA grant, and also Open Choice Wireless, not so much of a grant, but it's more so a reimbursement from the state based on how many students we have in the Open Choice program. So we anticipate that we'll continue to have some revenue there. So that was an additional $671,000. So just wanted to tie in, total district-wide expenditures. And we did make adjustments for the federal recovery for the loss of the federal grants. So we started to make those adjustments from beginning fiscal 23, and that will continue in fiscal 24. So we're not going to have that fiscal cliff where we'll need additional funding because we have lost federal funding. I think our management of the COVID funds was excellent on our part, and I think we extended. While other districts may have expended quite a bit of their money in the first couple of years, we had limited funding that we received from those federal grants. So we carefully managed that, where we maximize the full range of when those funds were available, and in addition to that, we also tapered off. Definitely to avoid that fiscal cliff. So I think we're in good shape where that is concerned. All right, so that is it for in terms of the operating budget. As it relates to our funding dental claims. So this year our total dental claims and fees was $379,000. We had a budget of $434,000, and this for beginning fiscal 23. We resume funding dental claims from our operating budget. So we're going to continue to do that going forward. So things have leveled off. I think coming in fiscal 22, we saw an increase in dental claims, and that was pent up. Let's call that pent up claims, because of COVID. So I think we have leveled off somewhat. So I think in terms of future budgeting, we can sort of kind of make some adjustment as it relates to dental claims. So the non-lapsing account remains unchanged. So we will still have balance in the internal services fund. That balance remains unchanged, and we will end the year as we started with $418,000, approximately $418,000 in that internal services fund. And that is it in terms of a recap for fiscal 23.
Phil, are there any anticipated costs that we can think about or plan for with respect to the health insurance change that our employees will be embarking on or are embarking on?
Can you just clarify a little bit, Marissa?
Yeah, no, I just mean, in terms of it's now a high deductible plan. Are there any, whether it's moving, the way that employees may decide to plan for non-emergency surgeries and activities related to their health insurance being a change to a high deductible plan? Is there anything that we're not thinking of or that we are thinking of that would impact the budget with such a change?
No, I think because everything was bargain, right? So we dealt with that change during our past negotiations. So there's not much that we can do from the district level that will help, that would mitigate all that. What employees can do is that based on IRS guidelines, employees can fund additional monies based on their level of coverage. So we do have some employees who are doing that. So that's from the district. Recently, over this past legislative session, the state did approve statewide $5 million worth of funded for paraprofessionals only
Right.
to help to mitigate some of their costs. So our paraprofessionals will receive some extra money from the state to cover these, to help to offset or to mitigate those expenditures. So they will have some assistance there. But in terms of what the district can do, I think we've exhausted that at this point.
And do we have any way of, other than, you know, through the normal collective bargaining process, of receiving feedback from our employees as they navigate this change in health insurance? I just want to make sure that that anything that that we can be aware of, any problem areas or concerns that our employees are experiencing.
I think so. Just based on it, just in general, if employees have a concern, normally they would either reach out to their union president, and sometimes these employees would reach out to us directly, just to clarify questions or whatever it is. We did field significant amount of questions from employee after we transitioned, so we did provide a lot of answers and guided those employees as best as we could. But in terms of that open feedback, that's always there. I did not hear a lot about with employees, really having many significant difficulties with the change. What we heard was just that it's a change, right? So you were going from just having your copay when you visited the doctor now to having to pay to have this deductible.
Well, yeah, I mean that's kind of what I'm getting at. I think we're going to see employees that don't maybe weren't paying as close attention or are not used to a high deductible plan. When they start, visiting the doctor this fall, this winter, they're going to start having bills that may be unanticipated. So I'm just want to make sure that our communication channels are open and that we're hearing all the feedback we need to hear.
I think people are reaching out that need to reach out, and the union presidents reach out. The other thing is I do meet with the union presidents of all three unions probably about 4 times a year. And I do have an upcoming meeting scheduled with them, and I'm sure that I'll be able to get feedback, which I'll share with Phil.
Great.
And then if an employee has a question, they reach out to their union representative. Who does the union representative reach out to?
Phil.
It's a combination of Lisa and myself. So they definitely reach out to us because they reach out quite a bit.
Okay, thank you.
Just want to give a quick, any questions for the last fiscal year? So I just want to give a quick update for fiscal 21-22. So fiscal 22, we had encumbrances of $715,000 approximately. So we have liquidated $484,000 off of that, and there remains approximately $231,625. Now, the majority of this has to do with tuition reimbursement. So at the end of fiscal 21, we had either contracts that were pending to be signed, or we were waiting on supporting documentations for families. To date, we have not received those signed contracts or supporting documentations from the families. And because of that, we are releasing the money that we had that we were holding in anticipation of that in fiscal 22. I did find out this morning, because Tracy was having this meeting, that a family did reach out to her just to advise her that they do intend on providing documentation for fiscal 21. So we may have some exposure there, but I'll try to see if we can mitigate that maybe from fiscal 23. So I may be revising the reports as things become clearer for fiscal 23. But in terms of exposure, that's the only exposure that I see at this time as it relates to fiscal 22.
So if you release those encumbrances, that just increases the funds returned to the town?
That is correct.
Okay.
Right. So when we spoke about, and Mr. you'd raised a question about security initiative that will improve. So a part of the agreement with, well, the idea was that we were going to have a surplus, and the surplus was going to use to mitigate. The surplus would be used to pay for the capital funding for a security initiative. So I just want to highlight that we will be spending $350,000 for security initiatives.
Right, and that's understood by the Board of Finance.
Correct.
Yeah, no. That's a affirmation that I've had that discussion as recently as yesterday.
Good. So that is it in terms of an update.
Great.
Oh, real quick. It's not just to tie everything in. So 2021, 22, and 24. So for 2024, we will be providing an update in October. As of right now, things are just trending. We anticipate that things will trend to be pretty much to be as budgeted. So once the dust is settling for hiring and everything else, so we will provide an update for fiscal 24 in October.
Great. And just so everyone knows, Phil worked over the summer with Mike Imber and Teresa Brasco on their project on budgeting and purchasing. You might just want to relate a little bit of that, Phil, just to bring everyone up to date on that.
Right. So the subcommittee on the Board of Finance wanted to do more of a long range projection. So they just reached out just to kind of see where we are, what we anticipate with having a new budget in terms of what the cost will be at the high end. So we did reach out to I did provide those numbers, and the numbers are not that different from what we provided in our multi-year pro forma. So they're going to take that and they'll do their analysis based on those numbers. And this is really more so. It's less to do with budgets and more in anticipation of the capital expenditures in terms of the funding for the district-wide improvements, district and town improvements.
Right. I just wanted to say that because I think it's important that that we all recognize that the Board of Education is working collaboratively with the Board of Finance in terms of putting together a long-range capital spending outlook, because that'll be important as we move forward with the determination on any capital spending that we're going to do and configuration of the schools. So that that's ongoing, and it's been going on with Mike and Teresa and Phil.
Well, we also talked yesterday at our admin team about we have to get a clear sense of basic repairs that need to be made, especially to two of the buildings within the next 7 years. And we're hoping to get that early in the fall so we can have that information in late fall when we start talking about these buildings and the overall synergy between the town and the district.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really important point. Should we spend some time talking about the timeline for some of those repairs in those two buildings that could impact the EOC?
I guess we should.
Are we talking about having that discussion now or later on in the fall? Because our plan is to have that discussion in the fall.
No, not now, but we should be prepared for that discussion.
Well, I think the EOC is kicking off, Peter, when early October. You're really getting your meetings up and running for the EOC? Do we know when? Oh, I think you're on mute.
Peter, I think you're on mute.
Our workflow kicks off in earnest in October. We've met several times since.
Right.
So having that information in hands going to be useful timing. Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's just some things that are on the capital plan that were already up on our slides that were showing, work and consultancy related to the Hurlbut and the middle school. So
Yeah, I mean, it's important, Melissa, because we don't want to be, if we think we're going to do something to the middle school, just to pick out the middle school, and we can put a time frame on it, then the question is, what type of work do we do prior to that? That's really the key.
yeah, I think that's right.
We were looking for by mid-October to have a clearer understanding of that. So maybe the next meeting.
Yeah, maybe we should all spend some time thinking about it in
Okay.
advance. Phil, maybe you can add that to the agenda and we can make sure we cover that in depth because the committee needs to plan appropriately.
Yeah, but it also kind of dovetails into where the Board of Finance comes out in terms of their view of, what the town's balance sheet's going to look like
Exactly.
over the next.
Yeah,
10
maybe
years.
you can have a conversation with them, prior to, I'm sure you are ongoing, but before October would be helpful.
Yeah. No, I had this conversation briefly with Mike Imber yesterday, and I told him what our timing is and what we think our timing is, and we're going to kind of go into, a much more accelerated planning process. And so we will have that conversation.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, great. So unless there are any other questions, the last item on the agenda is to approve our June committee meeting minutes. Are there any changes to those? Do I have a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the committee meeting minutes from our June meeting.
Right. Is there a second? Second, Peter. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anything else? Anything else?
I
A
think
motion
we're
to
all
adjourn?
Okay,
Wait.
but if Melissa and Steve could stay on an extra minute after we adjourn to go over the agenda.
Sure.
right. Okay. Good weekend, guys.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
If we could stop,
And you can
Thank you, everybody.
if we could stop recording, please.